Former Las Cruces Mayor Ken Miyagi-Shima has announced his candidacy for New Mexico governor. Senator Ben Ray Luján spent Tuesday hosting a roundtable with local officials to discuss cuts to Medicaid and other social safety net programs that could be coming in a federal budget bill. And an iconic Albuquerque food chain may be eyeing expansions to other parts of New Mexico. From the Albuquerque Journal, this is the leading news. I'm Gino Gutierrez. It's Wednesday, May 28th, and I'll have more on those stories, plus a look at other journal headlines and the weather forecast on the other side of this break.
This episode is brought to you by the Kirtland Partnership Committee. For 30 years, we've been dedicated to supporting, growing, and preserving the Kirtland National Security Complex. We work tirelessly to enhance military readiness, foster community partnerships, improve quality of life, and promote economic development right here in New Mexico. Join us in our mission to ensure that Kirtland remains a cornerstone of national security and a key provider of quality jobs and investment for all of Greater Albuquerque. Together, we can make a powerful impact. Kirtland Partnership Committee, proudly shaping the future of our national security for 30 years.
It was a busy day in southern New Mexico on Tuesday, with a former Las Cruces mayor announcing his candidacy for New Mexico governor and Senator Ben Ray Luján holding a roundtable with local officials in Las Cruces. With more on both of these stories, I'm now joined by the Journal Southern New Mexico correspondent Algernon Damasa. Algernon, thank you so much for joining me.
Well, hey, Gino.
So Algernon, you were seemingly here, there, and everywhere on Tuesday covering both of these events, but let's start with the former Las Cruces mayor Ken Miyagi-Shima announcing his candidacy for New Mexico governor. That might not be a name that many New Mexicans outside of Las Cruces in southern New Mexico are familiar with. What can you tell us about him?
Well, Ken Miyagi-Shima is a businessman and also has had his eyes on political office since he was a child by his own account. He was elected as a Doña Ana County commissioner when he was 28 years old or thereabout. And he also served 4 terms as Las Cruces' mayor. He actually left City Hall at the end of 2023, holding the record as the city's longest-serving mayor.
And he now joins a Democratic field that includes some heavyweight names like former Interior Secretary Deb Haaland and current Bernalillo County District Attorney Sam Bregman. So how did Miyagi-Shima frame his campaign on Tuesday?
Well, he's contrasting his municipal experience against both of his Democratic rivals. Deb Haaland was a cabinet secretary under President Biden and Congress member before that. Sam Bregman, of course, has a legal career as well as recent history as the DA. So Ken presented himself as somebody with a municipal resume, dealing with city budgets, working with public safety agencies and overlapping programs. He's a business-friendly Democrat who has taken some lonely positions. Notably, he was steadfast against the legalization of adult use cannabis. He's not afraid to take unpopular positions, and he thinks he's offering something in the Democratic field that Haaland and Bregman don't offer.
So definitely sounds like he's framing himself as an alternative candidate to the 2 other names in the Democratic Party. But as far as his stance on some pressing issues facing the state, such as crime, healthcare, housing, homelessness, how did Miyagi-Shima discuss those issues?
Right. He's a long-time critic of bail reform in New Mexico. He's calling for tougher mandatory sentences, as well as making it a little easier to hold some defendants in prison ahead of their trials. Didn't offer a whole lot of details about what he was going to propose or what he think he could get through the roundhouse, but that was the general outline. For housing, and Las Cruces notably is a city that's put a lot of public investment into expanding its housing supply. He says that he thinks he's got a plan that will bring housing costs down as much as 25% and ease the way for first-time home buyers. Again, got to see what is in that plan, how he thinks he can make that happen, but that was his pitch on Tuesday. And finally, his other big thing is that he thinks medical malpractice reform is essential to expanding healthcare across the state, and he wants to get a lot tougher on trial attorneys who he says are exploiting New Mexico's laws and driving physicians out of the state. We'll see.
So as we touched on earlier, Miyagi-Shima now joins a Democratic field with 2 big names, and also 2 names that have raised a lot of money so far. Deb Haaland approaching the $3 million mark and Sam Bregman approaching $1 million raised. So Miyagi-Shima needs to catch up a little bit in the fundraising department, but one thing he has that the other 2 candidates candidates don't, is a country western song that he played at his announcement on Tuesday, so a little bit of western flair to kick off this campaign, Algernon.
He has this, it's true. He has this country western style campaign song, and he's going to, he says, one, he thinks that as he gets his message across the state, he'll be able to catch up on fundraising enough to run a lean but effective campaign operation. And that's the challenge he's setting for himself, and we'll see how he does.
It will be interesting to see how this Democratic race for governor evolves as we approach the election next year. But let's shift gears, Algernon, to the second story you covered today, and that involves Senator Ben Ray Luján paying a visit to Las Cruces to hold a roundtable with local officials, service providers, and residents at the Munson Senior Center, and they discussed a myriad of issues. What can you tell us about that?
Well, it was mainly safety net cuts in the so-called Big Beautiful Bill. That's how the federal budget sort of omnibus package is styled. This is a bill that is looking to pay for much of President Donald Trump's domestic agenda, which includes hundreds of billions in cuts to Medicaid, as well as new work requirements to qualify, and SNAP, which provides food assistance to a lot of our population. I mean, New Mexico is one of the states that is most reliant on Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and that is for a number of reasons dealing with different population groups in our state. And Senator Luján wanted to hear specifically from people who work at the agencies and nonprofits that deliver services to senior citizens, to people who rely on Medicaid for healthcare services, and people who run food pantries and such, to talk about how these services overlap and what are the possible effects of cutting some of these federal programs that intertwine with each other, these sort of possible unforeseen consequences, as well as taking suggestions for what he could take back to Washington, because the bill is now passed the House, it goes to the Senate, and the Senate has an opportunity to make changes to that bill before they vote on it in the coming weeks.
So Senator Ben Ray Luján hearing concerns from local officials, service providers, and residents during a roundtable in Las Cruces as the One Big Beautiful Bill, which was passed by the U.S. House and proposes nearly $700 billion in Medicaid cuts and $267 billion in SNAP reductions over the next 10 years, makes its way to the Senate. Journal Southern New Mexico correspondent Algernon Damasa sharing the latest with us. Thank you so much, Algernon.
Sending you the best from the great Mesilla Valley.
An iconic Albuquerque-based restaurant chain is eyeing expansion to other parts of New Mexico. With more on this story, I'm now joined by the Journal's retail and real estate reporter, Kylie Garcia. Kylie, thank you so much for joining me.
Of course, thanks for having me.
So Kylie, I'm sure a lot of our listeners are curious, which restaurant chain here in Albuquerque is looking to expand beyond the Duke City?
Yeah, so it's Golden Pride, has 4 locations in Albuquerque, was founded in 1972, so had a long history in Albuquerque, serving breakfast burritos, fried chicken, barbecue, and other New Mexican cuisine for over 50 years.
And Kylie, as far as the expansion plans for Golden Pride go, what can you share with us on that front?
Yeah, so they're looking to expand in and beyond Albuquerque. They're partnering with an investment firm from Santa Fe, and through that partnership, they're kind of just seeking to preserve brand while also kind of laying a foundation for it to grow in the future. The family said that they have long had a belief that Golden Pride has the ability to grow, and so they're hoping to do that with this partnership.
And Kylie, as you just mentioned, they have this idea that Golden Pride can be successful in other places in New Mexico, but do we have an idea of what those other possible locations could be?
Yeah, so it seems we caught them at the early end of the partnership. An official with City Different Investments, Joel Van Essen, he said that they can't share any of the expansion plans at the moment, but said that they're just looking to expand access to Golden Pride food in Albuquerque and surrounding communities. He said that their role in the partnership will be to provide financial resources as well as strategic insight, but the family will still be involved, very much involved in the business.
And that ownership family you're referring to, Kylie, the Renesec family, also owns the Frontier restaurant in Albuquerque, another very iconic food locale. Do we know if the Frontier plays a part in this deal at all?
Yeah, so the family does still plan on being involved. It's unclear if this partnership brings about any sort of new ownership structure, but what they did make clear is that the Renesec family will be involved and will continue to be involved going forward forward, running things, operating things, keeping Golden Pride what people know it to be.
So a new partnership and possible expansions on the horizon for Golden Pride that could see restaurants crop up in different parts of New Mexico. Journal real estate and retail reporter Kylie Garcia sharing the latest with us. Thank you so much, Kylie.
Of course, thank you.
In other headlines from the newsroom, Airman First Class Malik Etienne, a 22-year-old service member from Kirtland Air Force Base, tragically drowned at Elephant Butte Lake over the weekend. His body was recovered near Lions Beach Campground on Monday after he went missing on Saturday evening. Kirtland Air Force Base confirmed that alcohol was not involved and that the incident remains under investigation. Etienne had been married for just 2 weeks before his death and was recently recognized for outstanding job performance by Major General Clark Quinn, Deputy Commander of Air Education and Training Command. He served with the 351st Special Warfare Training Squadron, whose leadership is escorting his dignified transfer back to base. Colonel Nathan T. Kalunga, commander of the Special Warfare Training Wing, described Etienne as a dedicated and selfless airman who was a bright presence in his unit. He is survived by his wife, parents, and sister. 2 months after New Mexico's legislative session ended, tensions remain high between lawmakers and Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham over the state's child welfare system. Legislators expressed frustration during a Tuesday hearing over the governor's veto of over $1.6 million in funding tied to a new oversight body, the Office of Child Advocate, which is set to launch in July. While $650,000 in funding remains, the office lacks a director and a nominating commission has yet to meet. Lawmakers criticized the governor's remarks, dismissing their efforts as, quote, posturing, and highlighted ongoing concerns about high turnover at CYFD, repeat child mistreatment, and recent tragedies, including the suicide of a teen who was in state care. Though CYFD wasn't invited to the hearing, officials said they are working with the Attorney General's office to implement the new oversight structure. Advocates insist the issues facing the system are solvable but require urgent and sincere commitment. And former Albuquerque police officer Lucas Perez pleaded guilty Tuesday in federal court to participating in a long-running DWI bribery scheme. Perez admitted to receiving cash and other rewards from attorney Thomas Clear and paralegal Ricardo Rick Mendez in exchange for intentionally skipping court appearances, which helped DWI cases get dismissed. The conspiracy, believed to have spanned for 30 years, deeply infiltrated the Albuquerque Police Department's DWI unit, with Perez acknowledging it had become a culture within the division. Perez, who joined the force in 2016 and later became a DWI unit sergeant, is one of 6 officers to have pleaded guilty so far. In total, 13 officers have left the department, and 2 retired officers have also been implicated. Clear and Mendez both pleaded guilty to racketeering and related charges earlier this year, and the investigation, which is led by the FBI, remains ongoing. If you like hearing all of the latest news from the Albuquerque Journal here on the Leading News, consider becoming a digital subscriber to the Albuquerque Journal. You can check our show notes for a discount code on a digital subscription and keep up with all the latest news from New Mexico's leading news source. Now taking a look at Albuquerque's weather forecast. Today you can expect sunny skies with a high near 90, and as for this evening, partly cloudy with a low around 56. To keep up with all the latest news from the Albuquerque Journal, you can visit our website at abqjournal.com. That's the Leading News. I'm Gino Gutierrez. We'll be back tomorrow.